Okay, welcome everyone. This webinar is hosted by Oregon Farmers Markets Association. We support farmers markets across the state with training and advocacy and promotion. And besides workshops like this one, we hold monthly online meetups for market staff to talk shop about what they do. There's something scheduled almost every week all the way through September this year. You can check out our 2024 online schedule and see what's coming next. I'll put that link in the chat in just a second. We hope you'll register and join us again. We also have recordings of all of our past workshops. So a couple things about how our sessions work. My name's Amanda Cross. I'm with OFMA and I'm the host today. Also about how our sessions work, feel free to be off camera if it helps you attend. And just know that, our sessions invite a lot of sharing. This space truly becomes magic when we hear your real experiences and your questions about running farmers markets. We also ask that you share time and make sure you give space to others to respond to you and ask their own questions as well. Please use the variety of options available. You can type your thoughts in the chat, or we also love to see use of emojis and the reactions button to share a quick sense of how something landed for you or give affirmation to what you've heard. For any questions for the presenter, please type those in the chat. We'll make sure to cover quick clarifications as we go, but questions that need a longer answer we'll save to the end. And Kelly also let me know that she's okay with staying a little bit over time afterwards if somebody really needs to dive in deeper to a question, which is really generous of her. So, okay, we're going to hear from Kelly Streit. She's an expert in teaching farms how to use the Farm Direct Marketing Law to bring their value-added products for sale. And today she's here to talk to us farmers market people about what the law allows farms to do and to make sure we understand how to support the vendors that we work with. Plus, we'll hear about the updates to the law that happened recently. So, hi, Kelly, please introduce yourself and say hello.
All righty. Well, thank you for that wonderful introduction, Amanda. Again, I'm Kelly Streit. I am an instructor with the OSU Extension Service. I'm based in Clackamas County, and I've worked with farmers on helping them be able to sell producer processed value-added products for sale in Oregon under the Oregon Farm Direct Marketing Law, which is had a really good question in the chat or a comment about knowing what the boundaries are and what the definitions are. And so I'm going to start out with that to make sure that we all kind of are operating under the same page, and then we will go from there. So again, thank you for giving us your time this hour, and I'm going to go ahead and get started. And I'm having trouble. There we go. Okay, so what we are going to do, I always like to start off with learning objectives. So what we're going to be talking about the next hour is we're going to be talking about the ODA guidance. Whoops, I'm having some issues with my screen here as well. Examine the guidance contained in the new Oregon Farm Direct Marketing Law. So we're going to start out with some definitions. We're going to talk about what products are allowed. We're going to read requirements, sales channels that are specific to farmers markets, and the sales limits. We'll talk about what is a tested recipe resource, because you're going to hear that term thrown around quite a bit, and it's really important. We're going to explain the approval process for an acidified food product that originates from a customized recipe. And I will explain what an acidified recipe is here in a couple of minutes. We'll talk about what the approved food preservation methods are, and then we'll get in some practical tips for market managers. And what I'm going to tell you right off the bat is to just take a breath. You don't have to know all of the answers. There are resources and help out there, which I will also be sharing with you. We'll talk a little bit about labeling guidelines and where you can find more information on that. And then, there are going to be times where you're going to work with a vendor and you're going to realize that their product does not qualify under the Oregon Farm Direct Marketing Law. It does not qualify for that Farm Direct exemption, but they really want to get their product to market. And, how can you support them? So I want to make you aware of what resources OSU has available for folks to help keep them moving on their own journey. And then I will also share where you can find OSU and ODA Farm Direct resources, which sometimes appear to be a big secret, but they're really not. They're just sometimes tricky to be able to locate. So anyway, I'm going to start out by let's again do some definitions really quick here. So the Oregon Farm Direct Marketing Law was originally passed in 2011. And what it allows agricultural producers to do is produce certain low-risk value-added products, and that includes fruit spreads, pickled and lacto-fermented fruits and vegetables, and sell them directly to the consumer without having to obtain a processing license, as long as they grow the produce themselves. And so what this means is that agricultural producers producing a product for sale under this law are exempt from licensure. And sometimes people are a little confused about what does the term exempt mean? Well, exempt means that there's no forms to fill out, no money changes hands, no licenses issued. Basically, that is what exempt means in this case. So I hope that helps people a little bit, because sometimes people will interpret that and say, well, how do I file for an exempt? Well, in this case, exempt means you don't need to do anything. So as long as you meet this criteria in this definition. So in 2023, the Farm Direct Marketing Law got a bit of an update, and we added some new products, which I will share with you. We also added a couple of new food preservation methods. There are some additional sales channels, and the gross sales cap was increased. So I'm going to cover those things as well as we go through this. Your best getting started piece to learn more about the Oregon Farm Direct Marketing Law is going to be to consult this publication. And I think Amanda put a PDF of this in the chat that you will all be able to access. This is kind of the A to Z getting starter guide as far as, learning more about the law. It was originally produced in the mid 2010 something, few years into it. And then I just went in after the law was passed earlier this year and updated it. So it is up to date as of incorporating all of the updates to the new law. So if you are new to this law or just need a refresher, I highly recommend going to this resource and taking a deep dive into it. So specifically, what producer processed products are allowed for sale under this exemption or under the Oregon Farm Direct Marketing Law? Well, they basically fit into three categories. And one of those categories is acidic, the second is acidified, and the third is lacto-fermented. So what in the heck do those three terms mean? Well, if it's an acidic food, it's going to be a food that has a pH of 4.6 or below. And so that's generally going to cover fruit syrups or fruit canned in syrups, fruit-based jams, jellies, or preserves. And also now, as of 2023, it's also going to include fruit juices. So that was like a new addition to the law. Acidified foods. These are going to be the foods that have acid lowered to them to lower the pH to 4.6 or less. And these are going to be your pickled fruits and veggies. I noticed many of you commented, in addition to jams and jellies, many of you commented that pickled fruits and veggies were for sale in your market. There's going to be your tomato-based products. They're going to be your hot sauces, your chutneys, and some of your fruit and vegetable juices are going to originate from a vegetable source that is going to have to be acidified in order to get the pH to 4.6 or below. So, and I'll talk a little bit more about pH levels here in another slide or two. And then the
Hey,
third
Kelly?
category,
Hey, Kelly, we had a quick question about if fruit rolls, I guess that would be dried fruit, where that fits.
that fits under raw agricultural products, and we're going to get to that shortly. So if I don't remember to bring that up, remind me. But yes, that is also included under the Oregon Farm Direct Marketing Law. So, and then the third category for producer processed foods is going to be the lacto-fermented foods. And these are foods that are naturally fermented by lactobacillic bacteria to bring the pH down to 4.6 or less. So most commonly, what you're going to see in the farmer's market, because again, the ingredients all have to be grown by the producer, the agricultural producer, are going to be sauerkraut. Occasionally you'll see kimchi, although sometimes, folks aren't able to grow all of the main ingredients that are in kimchi themselves. So if they want to bring kimchi to the market, they're going to have to secure a processing license to do that. Quick pickles, crock pickles would also be an example of a lacto fermented food. So in the case of lacto fermentation, what we're doing is we're promoting the intentional growth of certain types of bacteria, yeast, or mold, and we're prohibiting the stuff that we don't want by getting that pH to 4.6 or below. So how do we determine that 4.6 pH level? And I think this will help tie together what I've talked about so far. So pH is an indicator of the measure of the acidity level. So as your pH goes up, the acidity decreases. And so if you look at this chart, you'll notice in the middle of it, there's that 4.6 cutoff. And as I go up from there, the pH becomes less and the foods become more acidic. And as I go down, the pH becomes higher and the foods become less acidic. The cutoff point, as you'll notice, is 4.6. So, most fruits tend to fall into that range of being acidic, as I talked about at the beginning. Exceptions to the rules can be some varieties of tomatoes. That's why we need to acidify all of our varieties of tomatoes and sell them as an acidified food product under this law. Figs would also be an exception. Asian pears, melons, some varieties of elderberries. Also, their pH is higher than 4.6. So these products need to be acidified. So, and also as you go down and as the pH goes up, you'll notice that, our vegetables fall in that range. Again, that's why we have to add acid to them to bring their pH, to lower their pH so that they go up the scale instead of down. So you'll see you'll see things like asparagus on that chart there. Green beans would also be an example. So you could sell green beans and asparagus, for example, if you acidified them. You could sell carrots if you acidified them. You could sell peppers if you acidified them. You could sell corn if you did it as a relish and you acidified it. So all of these food items need to have acid added to them to lower their pH. You'll notice at the bottom, we've got milk. its pH, as long as other protein foods are in the range of a pH of 7. So if so any foods that are protein based do not qualify for the exemption, and or you can't add protein containing ingredients to any of the food items that you are preparing for sale under this law. So I hope that chart clarifies kind of the cutoff point for you a little bit more. It's a lot of information to absorb, but if you just kind of look at the chart, hopefully that helps kind of make some of that clearer to you. So, and this addresses the question that was just asked about the dried food products. So agricultural products that are allowed under the Oregon Farm Direct Marketing Law, and you are already familiar with the majority of these. It's going to include fruits, vegetables, herbs, herb blends, and edible flowers. I have bolded herb blends because as of 2023, although folks were selling them, they are now legal. They were not, a food safety risk. So we tended to not tended to not bring that to agricultural producers' attention, but they just wrote it into the law. Now it's legal. Basically, you can now commingle your herbs legally, where you were not allowed to do that in the past. Nuts, shelled or unshelled, we've always allowed those. Whole eggs, we've always allowed. Honey with no additives have always been allowed. Grains, legumes, and seeds in these forms, we've always allowed. Parched and roasted. And then big leaf maple and walnut syrup are now allowed for sale under the law, which is a new addition this year. I noticed that, however, I do not have specifically, so the dried fruit that somebody just talked about would fall under that first heading up there. Fruits, fresh or dried. So fruit leather is allowed for sale under the Oregon Farm Direct Marketing Law. And there is an ODA fact sheet, and Amanda provided a PDF in the chat for all of you that addresses farm direct marketing agricultural products for sale under the Oregon Farm Direct Marketing Law, which you can refer to for more information. And we also have a little bit of information on that on our ODA publication, OSU publication as well. So what are these Oregon Farm Direct Marketing Law? What are the requirements for these producer processed products? Well, the principal ingredients have to be grown by the agricultural producer. The product has to be processed by that producer or an employee, on their staff. And again, these are all factors that help with traceback. In case we would have some sort of issue come up and we would need to trace back how that product was produced. That's why this guidance is there. Sales channel, those have increased. It used to be that I would be in my booth as the agricultural producer and I would hand over my product to the person who was purchasing that product from me, and direct exchange of money, and just hand that over. No degree of separation there. Okay. No middle person. However, in 2023, last year, we added consignment to that. So if you have a consignment table at your market, and you have an agricultural producer back there who is manning that booth for you, another agricultural producer who's producing a product could leave product on that table. And then whoever is staffing that table could then sell that product directly to a consumer. We also, and this doesn't affect you directly, but now some intrastate online sales are allowed as far as the new law, and also third-party sales are allowed via food hub types of setups. Folks can temporarily hold farm direct products and sell them directly to the consumer. So those are increased food channels, which really help expand the marketplace for folks who want to sell their products using the via the Oregon Farm Direct marketing law. And then we increased the gross sales cap this year. It used to be 20 grand, and now it was raised up to 50 grand. Where did they come up with a 50 grand figure? Basically, I think they looked at what other states are doing at this point, because most states now have what they call cottage food exemption laws. And basically the gross sales cap in most states has been increased up to 50. What I will say to you about that is if someone is producing $50,000 worth of product out of their home kitchen at this point, more without going absolutely batch crazy, more power to them. That is a lot of product for sale under a $50,000 sales cap. That also is an aggregate sales cap. So if you're selling more than one product, it's the total for all of those products combined. So you'll hear the term tested recipe resource. We want to make sure that the products that we are allowing for sale in our market space are safe. So we have written in tested recipe resources into the law. So basically, any recipes that are published in the USDA Complete Guide to Home Canning, and this is the newest version of that. If you're looking at my face right now, you are looking at the USDA Complete Guide to Home Canning. Then we have a variety of extension publications. And again, I'm just going to put these up in my face for the moment. So any Pacific Northwest Extension Service food preservation publications are also allowed under the law. So if you notice, here's a drying publication. We have salsa recipes for canning. We have canning fruits. We have a pickling vegetable publication. We have a canning in tomato products. So you can access them through our home food preservation webpage, which I will share to you towards the end. Or if you are conveniently located close to an OSU Extension Service office, many times they will have copies available in their offices that you can go and pick up a copy. And then the other resource is So Easy to Preserve. It's published by the University of Georgia National Center for Home Food Preservation. This is where OSU goes, or where we go with our home food preservation program if we get a food safety question that we can't answer. The National Center for Home Food Preservation is kind of the clearinghouse, processing place, educational center for new recipes, new science and technology, etc. So the newest version of this So Easy to Preserve has a black binding on it, by the way. That's how you can tell the newest version. But recipes out of So Easy to Preserve or off of the National Center for Home Food Preservation website would also be tested recipes that you can use. And also recipes out of the ball blue book are allowed as well, as long as they are dated, as long as the version you are operating out of is 1994 or later. You can also access recipes out of the ball blue book. And again, here are the URLs for those publications. Now, let's say, because this happens frequently, people, want to niche themselves, right? And have an idea for a creative, innovative product for an acidified food. Well, again, as you just saw, those are the recipes that are potentially have the most food safety risks associated with them. So we want to be especially mindful of those and careful of those. And we have some extra, there's a little extra vetting process that goes with an acidified food when you are starting with a low acid ingredient. So you have a couple of avenues that you can go. One is that you use a recipe from a tested source, like I just showed you, or what you can do, and we see this like with sometimes with chutney recipes, with relish recipes, with salsa recipes. You have a family recipe and you would like to sell it under the exemption, under Oregon Farm Direct Marketing Law. But it's a customized recipe. It doesn't line up with any of our tested recipes. And you want to still try to sell it under the exemption. What you need to do is you need to prepare a sample batch of that recipe, and then you want to send a sample of that recipe off to a certified lab and get the pH tested. If the pH comes back and it's 4.6 or below, ideally 4.2 and below, then what you can do is your next step is you need to submit the recipe to what is known as a recognized process authority for approval. And how you do that is what you need to do is Google the Food Processing Authorities directory, and you'll get a list of process authorities. And what you do is you hire one of those process authorities and you send a copy of your recipe along with your test results, along with the check, because there is a fee for this process, and you send that all on to them. And what they will do is they will review your test results. They will review your recipe and your process, and they will approve it. And if they approve it, they will send you a letter back to you and say, this recipe is good to go. You can go ahead and produce this product and sell it. And if you get that okay, you get that approval from a registered process authority, then you can go ahead and sell that product under the Oregon Farm Direct Marketing Law. So, and that's kind of the extra step there. And if you have any additional questions about that, we can address those during the Q&A portion here. So next, how am I doing on questions, Amanda?
One quick question, Kelly.
Okay.
I think someone's asking about barbecue sauce. I think they're just asking if it falls into this, but all they said was, what about barbecue sauce? So,
well, if they find a recipe under a tested recipe resource, right, they could do that. And or again, if it's a customized recipe, they're going to need to do exactly what I just explained. make the sample batch, get it tested, and then send it off to a recognized process authority for approval. I hope that answers that. Yeah, there's a lot of interest in condiments, right? So that's how that needs to go. And actually that segues into a really quick thing that I just want to point out, and I will point it out again. If you have an idea for a product and you're not quite sure where it fits, your best bet is to make friends with your ODA food safety inspector in your area. And I will, at the end of this, show you how to access that person and just say, hey, this is my idea. I really want to produce barbecued sauce and I want to sell it to the public. How do I do that? And talk it through with them and find out what is the best avenue for you to go. As an educator with OSU Extension, I can help you locate a recipe under, Farm Direct. But if you've got other ideas, ODA is the final go-to as far as having the say on where that recipe will fit as far as regulations go. And we'll talk a little bit more about that as we go further. So food preservation methods, as I said, we increased a couple. We've always allowed fermentation. We've always allowed drying. We've always allowed boiling water canning, but now we're also allowing steam canning and freeze drying. And the reason we allow these methods is because when we dehydrate or freeze dry, we remove moisture and we make it we create an environment where the bacteria aren't very happy. If we're adding acid, we are lowering the pH. So again, the bacteria aren't very happy. If we are heating up the product to boiling water temperature or steam temperature, we are again killing the harmful bacteria, yeast, and mold that can be present. And again, when we are making our jams and jellies and our chutneys and some of those other products, and we're adding sugar to them, sugar on its own acts as a preservative, and it also ties up water in the product. And again, certain types of bacteria like water. And if we remove the water, then they're not very happy. So steam, again, the steam canning is new, the freeze drying is new. The other methods we have allowed. Steam canning was approved as a food processing method in 2016. So when the law was updated in 2023, that was a pretty easy thing to just go ahead and add that. So I would be remiss in not just mentioning, the thing that we're trying to avoid most of all from a food safety risk is we're trying to avoid the risk for botulism. And in Oregon, we need to be a little bit more mindful of botulism for a couple of reasons. But I just want to kind of provide a little bit of information on it before I mention that, is that just so you know, we have inactive CBOT spores occurring naturally in the soil and water around us all of the time. And basically when they're inactive, they're not a problem. But what can happen is under certain conditions, those spores can germinate into vegetative cells that produce the deadly neurotoxin that we all know as botulism. And the conditions that allow that, and it kind of ties back with why we are implementing the food preservation methods that we are, is botulism spores like high moisture, low acid, no oxygen environment at a moderate temperature. So, a clear example of that is you'll notice when I've talked about vegetables, in all cases, if you're not drying them, we have to add acid to them. And the reason for that is because on their own, in a boiling water canning type of setting, they would be a high botulism risk. In no instances is that safe. And so that is why under the law you need to acidify low acid vegetables and you need to boiling water can them. Otherwise, low acid vegetables need to be processed in a pressure canner, and pressure canned products are not allowed for sale under the Oregon Farm Direct Marketing Law. Examples of risky foods, and we've seen examples of this in Oregon, are home canned veggies and meat that were done in water bath canning settings, garlic and oil, the canned nacho cheese sauces that you see, and then baked potatoes wrapped in foil are another botulism risk that we commonly see. California, Washington, Colorado, Oregon, and Alaska account for more than half of the botulism outbreaks reported by the CDC. And again, it has to do with our soil composition. We have a higher percentage of those inactive botulism spores occurring naturally in the soil. And then we have varying altitudes in the state. And so when people are processing, they need to be mindful of that and make adjustments when they are processing their food items to compensate for that. And those are just two reasons why we have a little higher incidence. So anyway, not want to scare you, just want to make you mindly scared about why why those vegetable products absolutely have to be acidified or dried if we're selling them for sale under the Farm Direct Marketing Law. So if there aren't any questions, let's take a step back and let's talk about, I've thrown a lot of information at you. Basically, when I present this material, I'm doing it in like a 3.5 hour, 3.5 hours of kind of discussion, activity, back and forth. And right now, I'm just kind of at you. So let's take a step back and let's let me just kind of give you a little bit of wiggle room to kind of absorb some of the information and also provide you with some resources about how to kind of move forward. So again, take a breath. You don't have to, know everything. Just start to educate yourself. And know that the OSU Home Food Preservation Program and the ODA Food Safety Division are resources that you can go to for help. We started off by downloading some publications into the chat that you can get started with. Ask questions, reach out to, I'm going to provide my contact information at the end. Reach out to me. If you have a relationship with your OSU Extension Service in your county, reach out to them. Hopefully you have a relationship with your ODA Food Safety Division in your county. Reach out to them. You don't need to know all the answers. Ask them for help. ODA is going to be they're going to be the bottom line in telling you what you can and cannot do under the law. They are the regulators. However, if you have questions or want to know best practices about food preservation methods, we can help you at the OSU Extension Service. We have trained master food preserver volunteers located up and down the I-5 corridor. We don't have as many folks on the eastern part of the state, but if you contact me, I can connect you. who can, answer your questions about this food preservation method or that food preservation method, or this person wants to use this recipe. Can you help me? Can we find a recipe in a tested resource that they can use? That's where we can help. We can provide you with the science-based information and skills-based. We offer classes in the community. We can answer your food safety questions, and we can direct you to the appropriate resources. ODA is going to tell you what you can and can't do, and what you need a processing license to be able to do. That's kind of the division of responsibility and scope of practice between the two organizations. Now, what you can do to make things easier for yourself is you can start your own vetting process, starting with the market application. Vendors come to you at the beginning of the season. They want to sell a product, a producer processed product. So you can ask them on the market application, are you wanting to sell this under Farm Direct marketing law? Okay. Or are you selling this under a processing license? Are you using a co-packer, for example, or do you have a domestic kitchen license to be able to do that? You can ask that question on a market application so you can gain more clarity, and you can help the vendor gain more clarity about where does their product fit, if they are going to sell that in your market. If it's an acidified product that they want to sell, and again, that is one of the highest food safety risks. It's important, ask them on the market application, what is the source of your recipe? If it's a customized recipe, did they get that recipe vetted by, a recognized process authority? And if they did, ask to see a copy of the certification, so that they went through the steps. And if they have, questions, it's an opportunity for you to explain to them, this is what they need to do, or, connect them with the food safety inspector in their county so they can learn, what those steps are. And then again, you can help set the expectations by, stating in your market rules as well as on the application, we expect that you are going to follow the guidance that's outlined in the Oregon Farm Direct marketing law. So hopefully some of what I'm saying is helpful here. Food safety, again, if bells and whistles go off in your head, a red flag goes off in your head, especially where an acidified food product is concerned, ask that product be removed for sale until you've had a chance to have a discussion with the vendor around where does that product fit. Does it qualify for exemption? Are they trying to do it with a customized recipe and the recipe has not been vetted? Then hook them up with the ODA food safety inspector to be able to, go through the steps. If they want to do it using a tested recipe, again, OSU, we can help them find, a tested recipe. It's not required, but just food safety practice is if you've got folks selling lacto fermented food products in their market, ask that they keep those products in a cooler and at the correct temperature during the market day. And then we do, and I just have to mention this because this does scare me a bit. In 2019, they approved allowing garlic infused oils Garlic infused oils can cross all of the boxes that I just mentioned as far as being a botulism risk. You've got a low acid environment, you've got a low acid ingredient, you've got no oxygen, you've got a moderate temperature. I get a little scared when I see these products. We do allow garlic infused oil. We have one publication that allows you to do that safely. I really do caution you and say, do your homework if you're going to allow garlic infused oils in your market to vet. And if you need, help with that from a food safety standpoint, OSU, we can help you with that. That is one product that can potentially cross the line. Okay, labeling. To move on to labeling. We do get some questions on labeling. I do feel that the guidance that's outlined in the ODA fact sheets and also in our publication is pretty, that guidance is pretty helpful. And here it is. And this is the same thing that's printed on those publications. Product labels need to contain, what the product identity is, what the name of the agricultural producer is, what the address of the agricultural producer is, the net weight, and the list of ingredients. And you need to include any major allergens on that list. Where the farm direct marketing law is concerned, generally allergens don't come up. But just as an FYI, what is considered a food allergen includes milk, eggs, soy, wheat, fish, seafood, peanuts, tree nuts, and sesame seeds. Okay, and then you need to have on the label, product labels must contain the following information. The product is homemade and is not prepared in an inspected food establishment, and it's not for resale. Here's one example. Some of you may be familiar with Ann Berblinger. She was an early adopter back in 2011 of the Oregon Farm Direct Marketing Law. Here is an example of how she kind of treads both sides of that. And doesn't have on here the net weight. That is one thing that's lacking. Otherwise, this does provide you with an example of kind of how that information can be incorporated. It can be really difficult to get that information all on one label. So sometimes people do two-step labels like Anna's doing. I have another product here, which is for a farm-grown tomato apple chutney. This is one of our master food preserver volunteers up in Clatskanie, Terry, who we work with quite closely up in the Clatskanie area. She sells a product. She has a product for sale. She has a two-step label. She's got the warning on one side, and she's got the label on the other. So if folks are asking you how to put their label together, share the publications with them so they can kind of get an idea of what type of information needs to be on that label. We now, because we allow raw juices, we have an extra level of specificity that needs to be on a raw juice label. So in the new guidance, what is stated is that if any acidic fruit and vegetable juices that have not achieved a 5-log reduction of the most resistant microorganisms of public health concern must post the following warning information on the label, and you can see it right there. The product has not been pasteurized and therefore may contain harmful bacteria that may cause serious illness in children, the elderly, and persons with weakened immune systems. Keep refrigerated. So when I saw that top phrase written into the administrative rules, I went to ODA and I said, okay, what does 5 blog reduction mean? What can we tell agricultural producers to do if they want to avoid putting that warning label on their product? What do they need to do? And basically, if it's raw apple cider, for example, I did some research. I pulled a couple of publications together. I forwarded them to ODA, and what they agreed to was if you want to sell a raw juice and avoid the label, the warning label, what you need to do is heat the raw juice or the raw cider up to 160 degrees, hold it there for 6 seconds, and then you can go ahead and bottle it for sale, and you do not need to put the warning label on it. However, if it's raw juice that has been processed and is just being bottled on site, and it is not being heated up to 160 and held there for 6 seconds, then you need to add the warning label on that product as well. Any questions, Amanda, or are we good?
I've got 2 questions that I'm kind of holding till the end that we'll circle back to, but nothing's come up now. And you've got I'd say about 20 minutes left for slides if you want to have about 10 minutes for questions.
Okay.
What's up on that?
All righty. So then what I'm going to do, if everybody is good, is okay so far, is I'm going to move on to if your product, you have a vendor that comes to you and wants to sell a product, and you run through kind of what we've talked about, and you've kind of studied the publication, and you're going, I don't think that product qualifies under the exemption, but they really want to produce that product for sale. How can we help them? What type of guidance can we provide for the next step? What I usually see in most cases, with respect to this law, is it's going to be because they are producing a product where they're not growing the produce themselves, right? So if they're not growing the produce themselves, then they cannot sell that product for sale under the Oregon Farm Direct Marketing Law. Now, they may be able to sell it now under the expanded home baking bill, which is now called the cottage food exemption, which we can talk about on another webinar. They may be able to do it under that, but they will not be able to do it under the Oregon Farm Direct Marketing Law. So if that is the case, what kind of help can we provide? What suggestions can we offer them? So if it's not a farm direct eligible type of product, again, what they're going to need to do initially is they're going to need to produce a sample batch of that recipe. Okay. And they're going to need to send the sample batch to a certified lab and get the pH tested. They get the pH test results back. Then again, they're going to have to Google that recognized process authority list and connect with the recognized process authority. And, send a copy of the pH test results, and then send a copy of the recipe to that process authority. Along with, as I said, there is a one-time cost to do that. And then they will send you back kind of a certificate and say, hey, that product is approved. Then there is the next step, and these are new, is that person or that agricultural producer is going to need to participate in what is called an acidified food better process controlled school. And that is offered by University Food Science and Technology program, or it's also offered online. And what I mean by that is that, for example, OSU offers this training. They offer it in the fall. It's either 3 days, it's like 3 days, 3 to 4 days, I think. I am not sure if, depending on what type of processing you're doing, if you need to attend for the entire 4 days. But you go down to campus and you participate on campus. That is one way to fulfill the requirement. The other way is that you can go online and you can sign up for an online course that's offered by another cooperative extension website and pay your registration fee and do it in your PJs on your own time and meet the requirements that way. And then after you've completed those 3 steps, then you are good to go to be able to produce that product in what's called an inspected licensed facility. So an inspected licensed facility is going to be a domestic kitchen. It could be a shared use commercial kitchen. You could, build your own processing facility. If this was wanted this to be a long-term investment, or you could hire a co-packer, which is where you turn over a copy of your recipe to the co-packer and they produce that product according to your specs. And then they take a percentage of the whatever the income that you make off of that product. So I have worked with a couple of folks that have gone on to use a co-packer or gone the shared use commercial kitchen direction. Sometimes what happens is somebody will start out with Farm Direct, and again, their scale is getting so big that they again need to go to the next level, and then it's more appropriate to go, especially potentially hiring a co-packer may be the way to go, or going another direction, because they just don't have the capacity on their own to be able to continue scaling up their production to the level that they need to be able to keep it going as a viable business at that point. Another little tip I'm going to share with you all is you can Google what's called the kitchen door, and enter your zip code, and you can locate kitchen rentals that are available in your zip code region if you need to scale up your production. That's another way. And we also, OSU has a publication that's called Oregon Food Hubs publication that also will list where some of this commercial kitchen space may be available in your community if you are looking to scale up your production. OSU also offers some services through our Food Innovation Center, which some of you may be familiar with. And these are the services that the Food Innovation Center offers for folks who are, wanting to produce a product that does not fit in with the guidance of the Oregon Farm Direct Marketing Law. And these are a laundry list of some of the services that they provide. So on site, they have a product development lab, they have an analytical lab, they have a processing lab. They operate as a licensed kitchen. They can do temperature humidity testing. They have cooler and freezer storage room for, ingredients. They have processing and packaging equipment. If you are trying to figure out the best way to package your product or develop, as you're developing your product, they can set up sensory testing panels to monitor, to help you measure consumer response to a food product that you are currently developing. They can do all the analysis that that you may need done. They can test for water activity. They can test bricks, which is kind of the sugar content of your jams and jellies and other, sweet types of things that you may be producing. They can do the pH testing. They can test for texture, color, viscosity, microbial activity. All those types of services are available through them. If you think that they may have a service that would be valuable to you, what I encourage you to do is to contact them directly. You can send them an email, or you can pick up the phone and call them and just say, hey, I'm thinking along these lines. I want to do this product. What services may fit? And occasionally people will call them and they will get funneled back to me, because basically after talking with the FIC, they may decide, hey, starting off at a smaller scale with Farm Direct may be the best way for you to start initially, and then maybe eventually transition over to a larger scale and work with us. That can also happen occasionally. But I just want to make you aware of, if you've never heard of the Food Innovation Center, that is a resource that you can refer folks to for moving beyond the Farm Direct route. There's also a program called Getting Recipe to Market that some of you may be familiar with. And it is a partnership between the Food Innovation Center, PCC, and New Seasons Market. It is 12 weeks. It's intensive. It helps you take your idea to
Hi, Kelly, are you still there?
realized if they wanted to stay in business, they needed to offer online. So now they offer this program in a hybrid format. I'm not sure exactly what the breakdown is, but some of it you do online, and then some of it I believe you still need to trek to Portland for some of the education. Again, intensive business planning, product development, food safety, packaging, production, and distribution. They will vet you. If you call them up on the phone, they're going to pretty heavily vet you to see if you are a good candidate for their program. Because basically, their expectation is that you're going to show up, you're going to call them, and you're going to have a completed recipe that you are comfortable with. They prefer that you have had no retail experience at all with selling your product. They are going to interview, it's going to be, they're going to put you through a screening process, a guided interview, okay? Because it's a weeding process, because they basically, you start this program, 12 weeks, they want that product to be shelf ready. their expectation is you're going to be retail shelf ready and retail ready in 12 weeks after working with them. So they are looking for a very specific niche of clients. And the cost for that program, last I heard, it's around $2,000. So again, they want to make sure that you are a good fit. But if you are really serious about getting a product to market in 12 weeks and you have a recipe idea and you have no retail experience and you want a deep dive relatively quickly, you may be a good fit for their program. So pick up the phone and call them and have a talk with their program coordinator and see if that product is potentially a good fit.
Kelly, just want to make sure we have about 5 minutes to go for slides if you still want to have some Q&A time.
Okay, I've just got a couple more slides, Amanda, and I'm there.
Okay, great.
Okay, because these are kind of sort of bringing it home, right? So if you get onto the OSU Extension website and go to the home food preservation site, this is our homepage. So off of our homepage, another resource, which is called Ask Extension. All right, if you see this little here, you can anytime get on the Ask Extension website and pose a question on food preservation and safety, and your question will be formatted to somebody on the OSU staff who has a background in home food preservation. And we will answer that question for you. Okay, we do that for consumers, and we also do that for, our community partners as well. And I have fielded some questions from market managers in the past that have come through the Ask Extension website related to producing a product. In fact, I took 2 questions at the end of last week from consumers wanting to take a product to market. So that is another resource that you have that you can take advantage of. In the summer, and this week it will run July 8th to October 11th, we operate what's called a food safety and food preservation hotline, where folks can pick up the phone. It's an 800 number, and they can get their food preservation questions answered over the phone. Basically, we've got trained volunteers in a room with all of the resources, shelves of resources, and you can ask us a question and we will put on our critical thinking skills caps and we will work with you to provide an answer to that question. And or we may end up referring you to ODA for more information because it is out of our scope of practice. Or it falls into that, again, it falls into that regulatory realm, and it is not something that we can have the final say on. So you've got the website, you've got Ask Extension, and you've got our food safety and preservation hotline. One other place, just to talk about Clackamas County, we have a YouTube channel on our Clackamas County website. And during the pandemic, I produced 5 videos related to food preservation skills. And you can certainly access those. A syrup, acidified food, a dried food. I did a fermented food, and I also did a pH testing meter one, which is helpful because acidified food producers, and that includes your farmers, need to test a sample out of each batch of acidified food that they produce. So learning how to use a pH meter is going to be critical. So that is another resource. Okay, ODA. I know this print is kind of small, but if you look on the left side of your page there, you will see a link to find my local food inspector. All right. Click on that link and you will get a place where you can indicate your county, your city, your zip, can plug all that in. There will also be a place for you to plug in business type. Unfortunately, Farm Direct does not come up under that as a business type. The closest thing I will tell you is you'll get you can click on what's called processing domestic kitchen. And I would say that is probably the closest thing you're going to get to what we're doing. And then you will get a list of ODA food safety folks in your region, and you can pick up the phone or fire an email off to them and they can follow up with you. Again, you don't have to have all of the answers. We're here to help support your efforts. So with that, Amanda. Oh, and then here's me. Yes, feel free to also email me as well, and I am happy to help you out or get you connected with somebody more local to you if that is a better fit. Okay. That's what I got, pretty much.
Great. Thank you, Kelly. We have 3 questions. I think I'm going to start with Stacya's, then go to Lori, and then go back to Christy's. I think Stacya's might be a quick one to answer. This goes back to when you were asking about when you were explaining what to do for items that didn't fall under Farm Direct. It looks like there was a little confusion there about, Stacya says, so someone does not need a processing license if they're producing in a commercial kitchen? They do need a
good
license,
question,
right?
Stacya. So there are some conundrums in Farm Direct. And here's the deal. And I'm just going to tell you this, all right? If you're producing in like a licensed kitchen space, ODA assumes another level of scrutiny. And they're assuming that you are doing processing at another level. And technically, if we are following the letter of the law to the letter of the law, you are required to have a processing license if you are not doing it in a home kitchen setting. Here's my go round for you. And don't tell ODA I said this. Just don't tell anybody that you're doing it in a commercial kitchen space. Because in some cases, people are going to have access to better resources to produce their product in a commercial kitchen space. They're going to have more room. They may have access to equipment that they don't have in their home kitchen. And so just don't tell anybody that that's where you're doing it. If somebody asks you, say you're doing it in a home kitchen.
Hey, Kelly, this audience is for market managers, though. So they're not making the product. So what should they be asking their vendors?
Well, again, don't, you know what I mean? If it comes up, just say it's okay. But no, if they're exactly following the letter of the law and ODA asks them, they may ask for a processing license. But if the market, I mean, basically, if the market manager is okay with that, you know, they know that food is being processed in a clean and sanitary manner. I personally wouldn't draw attention to that.
Okay. All right.
It saves them from having to purchase a license.
Okay. Thank you. That's a good tip there.
Yeah.
Stacey, let us know if you have any follow-up questions. I'm going to move on
absolutely.
to Lori's. Lori's question was, how do we check what books, resources the farmers are using? How do we as market managers check what recipes the farmers are using? Or are we supposed to direct farmers to the resources that you listed?
So, I mean, one thing that you could do if it's a Farm Direct value-added product that they want to sell, you could just ask them to just on, you know, like on the, well, first of all, you could cite in your market rules These are the sources where the acceptable tested recipe resources are located. Second part is on your application, you could just ask them to state, where did they get their recipe? And they, if they say Ball Blue Book, it's a OSU publication, it's from the National Center for Home Food Preservation, then And if it's a customized recipe, again, ask them to show you a copy of the approval letter. And, so I think the other part of that is, how do I direct folks to the resources? Put it in your market rules so they know this is where to go to get those resources. And or they can reach out to us at OSU and we'll show them where the resources are. Does that help?
I'll let Lori type in if she needs some more follow-up with that. I'll move on to Christie's. This goes back to the beginning. Can you say more about what intrastate, online, and third-party sales would look like? I own a food hub and would carry some of my neighbor's products if I can. No pun intended. Although I think that's
okay. So this is another conundrum, all right, that I'm just going to address really quick. We need to correct it in the next reiteration of this law. But basically what the law says is, if it's a farm direct product and you're operating like as a third party or like out of a food hub, for example, and I'll just give you a really simple example, and you open up a pop-up market for the day, right? And you allow different vendors to bring in their producer processed products and have them for sale that day. In your pop-up market, let's say, okay, great, fine, you can do that. Technically, if it's a farm direct product, or not technically, legally, if it's farm direct, food hubs are not allowed to aggregate that product or store it. So what this means is that if you were to get a farm direct product for the day, that person, that agricultural producer, should come and pick up whatever's not sold at the end of the day and take it back. You're not supposed to store it overnight. Okay? Now, I think ODA, again, has enough to do that is not going to be a big priority for them to go around and check whether or not that is happening or not. I am just telling you exactly what the letter of the law says. We are, food hubs, third party, are not supposed to aggregate and store farm direct products on site. They can move them during the day, but they're not supposed to store them overnight. We'll fix it. But right now, that's what the law says.
And so if it's a virtual, if this food hub is virtual and not storefront?
I don't know about virtual, because you wouldn't be having it, right? Hanging on to it, it would not be physically in your space.
Correct.
That could very well be a go round.
Interesting. Okay. Well, I know this is farmers market, so I don't want to take up too much time.
The other thing, Christy, is, do you have a relationship with your ODA person?
Yeah, with Melissa. Yeah.
To have the conversation with her and share what I shared with you from the law, and just ask her what the best course of action is in that case.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks for asking the question.
Kelly, that covers the questions that were in the chat. We still have a little bit of time left. Does anybody else have something that they want to ask?
Yeah, I've got one. Is there any guidance on the other kinds of ingredients that are allowed that don't really cause a problem? Obviously, vinegar is probably fine. Salt is probably fine. And what percentages are we looking at?
Good question. And I should have mentioned that earlier. So, when you're doing a producer processed product under the Farm Direct, things like canning salt, standardized vinegar, sugar, pectin, dried herbs and spices, Those are all examples of exempt ingredients. All right. And Patrick, what was the second part? Oh, percentages. So this comes up sometimes. And I'm going to kind of talk out of both sides of my mouth and just say, use your common sense on how you address this in your market. People want to do rubs, right? Where they put a little bit of salt in them.
Mhm.
And again, salt is an ingredient that you can obviously add, right? But there's this thing about if it's a producer processed product, you need to have more of the producer process piece in there than the added product. So like some folks may put together an herb and spice blend or a rub where there's a higher percentage of salt than herbs and spices, and somebody else may do something where it's more herbs and spices versus salt. And so it's like, what do you do, right? Well,
Mhm.
it's not a food safety risk at all, right? And I've seen this frequently over the years. And I've just walked past it because it is not a food safety risk. But technically, it's supposed to be a higher percentage of the produce that you grew versus anything that you're added, which is why stuff like flavored vinegars aren't allowed. Because what's the main ingredient in a flavored vinegar? The standardized vinegar. It's not the herbs that you're adding.
Got it. Got it.
Does that help like confuse
Oh,
you
that
more?
helps a lot. Also with oils where, if you're adding, a stick of rosemary to, some oil you bought in the store, eh,
You can't. No.
don't do that.
Botulism, I mean, that is a huge risk, okay? If
Yeah.
I'm telling any of you this, if you see an infused oil on the shelves on your market and it has not been vetted, you yank that. That is a serious botulism risk, okay?
Thank you.
And as
Thank
I
you.
said, garlic infused oil is allowed, and we have one publication that addresses that. And I am happy to forward that to you if you want to take the risk and have that available for sale in your market.
Thank you.
You bet.
Anybody else want to throw a final question in?
Hi, yeah, this is Melissa from Coos Bay. I put in there, I need clarification on the salsa part. We have a vendor who, as far as I knew, was following all the rules, but then I've had somebody reach out to me and said they are not following the rules and the salsa would not fall under that because of high risk. So I just need a little more clarification or where I should go look to find that more clarification.
Good question, Melissa. Salsa is a product that we get a lot of questions about. So first thing you're going to want to do is go back to the vendor and ask them to produce the source of the recipe for you. Okay. So again, it gets back to because it's an acidified food, correct? Right? So they either need to be using one of those tested recipe resources to produce their product, and or they need to go that acidified food route where they get that recipe vetted by a recognized process authority. And if it's fresh, that needs a processing license. I mean, that definitely falls out of the scope of Farm Direct. So if it's a fresh product, that is a different type of processing license altogether. Does that help?
Yeah, I think that does. I mean, I'll have to look into a little bit more, but yeah, because the vendor is selling it in like you go get salsa from the grocery store in the refrigerator section, like that. It's not like in a jar. It's in like a
yeah, it's not shelf stable. That requires a processing license. So just check and find and make sure that they have a processing license to do that.
Thank you for the clarification.
You bet.
I have a question. This is Terry Ann from Ontario Saturday Market. And I have a vendor that has a lavender farm, so she makes lavender syrup. But because she's in Idaho, and this can be an issue, they're not coming in sealed canning jars. She puts them in pretty jars and things like that. Is that a no-no for Oregon?
I would say yes. Terry, let's talk more about that product offline, okay?
Okay, yeah, I'll do that. Thank you.
Yeah, I need to like think through that and figure out what is the best direction for that.
I'll loop you two together in an email to make sure you get connected.
Well, actually, I know Terry sent me questions before. I know how to get a hold of Terry.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, we are at time, so I want to let people go. And if you realize you have more questions or need clarification on anything, you can just let Kelly know directly, or if you didn't quite catch how to do that, just get in touch with me at amanda@oregonfarmersmarkets.org, and I will connect the two of you. And again, we will be having a follow-up email going out in the next week with the recording and a link to all the handouts and to Kelly's slides. So really glad everybody was able to show up and learn some new things for this season. And thank you so much, Kelly, for helping us all understand this law better.
You bet. And like Amanda says, feel free to reach out to me. Happy to like entertain questions.
Great. Thanks, everyone. See you later.
Alrighty. Have a good rest of your day, everybody.